the Old Town Sportsman 120 Autopilot 5-month review. Hey folks, Hank Pretz here. Well, I've had this kayak for about 5 months now, and I've been quite a few places with it, and I have a lot of hours under the seat. So I thought I would let you guys know what I think about it, and also tell you about some of the places I have taken it. I was a big time Hobie Outback fan before I got this kayak, so it was a big step for me to get away from the Outback. For somebody like me who's not getting any younger at this point, however, when I looked at all the features, it really wasn't that hard of a decision. Some of the things that helped me making this decision were things like the stability. It's a lot more stable. It's the first kayak I really feel comfortable standing up in. And thanks to the electric motor, I can finally keep up with my son Tom on long trips, and my youngest son Dwayne on our Mosquito Lagoon trips, and when he comes to Florida in May to visit every year. And the amount of room in the seat area is unbelievable. The question I get asked the most is, well, how long does the battery last, and how far can you go? Well, the answer to that depends. It depends on the wind, it depends on the speed you're going, it depends on the waves. So I think the best way for me to explain it is from my own use and experience on the way I fish. On this video on the screen right now, I have launched from the Dunedin Causeway, and I'm on my way out to Honeymoon Island. That's probably a little over a mile trip. Now on a day like this, I'll go out there, I'll spend maybe 5 hours out there, and the whole time I'm out there, I'll either be in spot lock or I'll be running along the mangroves, but the motor's almost always going. I'm using a deep cycle marine battery, 100 amp hour lead acid, and if I spend all that time out there on the water, the time I get home and I put it on the charger, I'm usually at still 80% battery left. Now your choices are to use a lead acid battery, which where you're pushing about 50 pounds, or a lithium battery where you're pushing about $800 to $1,000. And that battery will be around 30 pounds. Okay, here's where it's important to talk about battery management, I believe. The remote that comes for the motor has speed settings on it from 1 to 10. Now that is not miles per hour. On a calm day, 10 would be about 4 miles an hour. So that means the faster you go, the more battery you will use. So if I'm going out for like a 5-6 hour trip, I could put it on 10 and travel around as fast as I could. But now, if I'm going on a very long day fishing trip, where I'm going to be out there, say 10 to 12 hours, and I'm going to do a lot of miles, then I'll try to manage my battery by controlling my speed. I will travel around fishing spot to fishing spot, maybe at 7 or 8, to make the battery last longer. Now I've done this a great number of times on multi-day fishing trips or long fishing trips, and I have not ever drawn my battery down below 60% yet. Well, you might say, why worry about it then? Well, the reason I do is I might be a long way out on a calm day, not paying attention to how much battery I'm using. In the meantime, the wind comes up, and now I'm heading into an outgoing tide. I want to make sure I have enough battery to get me back to the launch. This kayak will paddle, but with the battery and the motor in it, it's not an easy task. That's probably all I need to say about the battery. Let's move on to some other features I like about this kayak. Now you have two ways of steering this kayak. You can steer it with your feet by the foot pedals. Left pedal will make you go left, right pedal will make you go right. But you can also steer it by the remote by turning the motor. Most of the time, you'll find yourself steering with your feet. Much easier. Frees your hands up to catch some fish. Now, the feature I love the most about this kayak, of course, has got to be spot lock. For those who don't know what spot lock is, it is an anchor system. You can stop, pick your choose your fishing spot, hit the anchor button on your remote, and the motor through GPS will keep your kayak in that spot, or at least within a 5-foot range of it. Regardless of the wind, the waves, it is really a game changer for kayak fishermen. One of the other things I like about it the most probably is when you get a big fish on, say a big redfish or a big snook, and they head to the mangroves, you throw that spot lock on and it keeps them from pulling your kayak into the mangroves. That's what I mean by a game changer. Some of the questions I get about the motor is, for example, what about grass on a propeller? Well, I can say after 5 months fishing in a lot of different areas, that has not been an issue. Most of the time, you could just reverse the motor and it'll spin the grass right up. People also ask, how shallow water could you go? I personally don't try to go in anything shallower than 1 foot. I have accidentally gone into water shallower than that and bottomed out, and the only thing that has happened so far is that the motor pops up. Okay folks, we all know nothing's perfect, so let's talk about some of the features I don't like or issues that I have had with it in the 5 months. One of my dislikes is the weight. The weight of this kayak compared to my Hobie Outback makes quite a bit of difference. There is some launch areas that I used to go to with my Outback that I don't go to with this kayak, even with a good kayak cart. It's just not worth the hassle. Another issue I have is with the paddle holder. On a trip out to Caladesi Island, I didn't realize that the strap wasn't strapped in all the way, and I ended up losing my best paddle. I also think it would have been helpful if the kayak came with navigation lights, because here in Florida you have to have navigation lights on a kayak with an electric motor. I did have to make a repair already. I had to replace the receptacle that the plug from the battery plugs into. However, this wasn't the manufacturer's fault. I caused this problem by allowing the plug to fall down into the sand, where a few particles of sand got in and caused a bad connection and caused the receptacle to melt. but I do think it would have been a good idea for the manufacturer to put a cap on the end of this plug to cover it when not in use. Okay, now let's talk about where I have been with this kayak. Besides all the local places, I have taken this to a 3-day trip at Mosquito Lagoon. On that trip, I didn't take an extra battery. I just took my battery charger, because we'd get up in the morning, go out and fish for about 3 hours, go back out in the afternoon for maybe 2 hours, and then back out in the evening for 3 or 4 hours. So I would bring my battery into the cabin every night and recharge it and be ready to go the next day. However, another camping trip would be much more of a challenge for the battery. Tom and I took a camping trip to 10,000 Islands in the Everglades, where we camped out on the remote island of Jewel Key. Now it's about a 6-mile trip out to that island. So what I did is I took an extra battery, and we were there for 3 days, and we do an awful lot of traveling in those 3 days. I didn't know what to expect out of these batteries. Never used my kayak under this heavy use before. So what I did is I used the first battery to get out to the island and to fish all that day and evening. Then I switched to the second battery the next day, used it to fish that entire day and the next morning and the trip back to the launch. When I got home and connected to my charger, I was surprised to see I had still 70% left on the second battery. This was also the trip where I ended up getting the sand in my plug and ruined the receptacle. I realized that this kayak came at a hefty price. It sells for about $3,800. But when I looked at the price of a new Hobie Outback and then considered I was getting a GPS-enabled electric motor, it didn't seem that bad then. On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the best, if you're a serious fisherman, I would give this kayak a 10. This is just my personal feelings about this kayak. I have received no money or products to endorse anything. I'm only trying to provide my viewers with the best information I can. Thanks for watching.